You believe your anger protects you. You believe that fire in your chest when someone disrespects you is a weapon, that the tension in your jaw is armor, that the heat behind your eyes is proof you are strong enough to care. You are wrong. And the fact that you believe it, the fact that almost everyone believes it, is exactly why almost everyone remains controllable. There are 7 laws that Machiavelli, the Stoics, and the darkest students of human psychology all agreed upon. 7 principles that separate the man who governs himself from the man who is governed by every passing insult, every careless word, every stranger with the power to ruin his afternoon. Most people will never learn them, not because they are hidden, because they are uncomfortable. You are still here, so let us begin. There is a feeling you know well. Someone says the wrong thing at the wrong moment. A coworker undermines you in a meeting. A stranger on the road cuts into your lane without looking. A person you trusted reveals they were never on your side. And the fire comes. It rises fast. Faster than thought, faster than reason, faster than anything you could call a decision. Your pulse climbs, your jaw locks. Words form in your throat like bullets chambered and ready. And in that moment, you feel powerful. That is the first lie. Niccolo Machiavelli spent his life watching powerful men destroy themselves, not through incompetence, not through lack of ambition, through the inability to master the one adversary that lived inside their own chest. In The Prince, he wrote that a leader must learn when not to be good, but more critically, he must learn when not to be moved. The distinction is everything. Goodness is a choice. Being moved is a surrender. And anger, no matter how righteous it feels, no matter how justified it appears, is always a surrender. It is the moment you hand your behavior to someone else and say, "Here, you decide what I do next." The man shouting in the meeting has not seized power. He has abandoned it. The woman who fires back with venom has not defended herself. She has exposed herself. Every flash of uncontrolled emotion is a flare shot into the night sky, announcing your exact position to anyone watching. And someone is always watching. This is not philosophy for monks on a mountaintop. This is survival architecture for anyone who wants to move through the world without being moved by it. The reason you react before you think is not a character flaw. It is biology operating exactly as designed for a world that no longer exists. Your amygdala, the small almond-shaped structure buried deep in your brain, was built for the savannah. It was designed to detect a lion in the grass and flood your body with cortisol and adrenaline before your conscious mind even registered the danger. Speed was survival. Thought was too slow. The humans who paused to analyze the rustling bush were eaten. The ones who flinched and ran lived long enough to become your ancestors. That machinery is still running, but now the lion is a dismissive comment. The rustling bush is a text message left on read. The predator circling your camp is a colleague who got the promotion you deserved, and your nervous system cannot tell the difference. Machiavelli observed this phenomenon in the courts of Renaissance Italy without ever having the language of neuroscience. He watched brilliant strategists, men who could plan campaigns across decades, crumble in a single moment of personal insult. He watched alliances shatter because someone felt slighted at a banquet. He watched kingdoms trade hands because a ruler could not sit still when his pride was scratched. The mechanism was always the same. Stimulus, story, surge, surrender. Something happens. Your mind writes a narrative about what it means, usually within milliseconds. Your body responds to that narrative as though it were life or death, and then you act from that flooded, distorted, chemically hijacked state and call it your decision. It was never your decision. It was the decision of a 200,000-year-old alarm system responding to a world of predators and tribal exile, running inside a body that lives in offices and parking lots and family dinners. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we suffer not from events, but from our judgments about events. The insult itself is nothing. It is air shaped into sound, it is ink on a page, it is pixels on a screen. What destroys you is the story you tell yourself about what it means, and the ancient machinery that treats that story as a matter of survival. That is the root, not the person who provoked you, not the world that disappointed you. The root is the gap between what happens and what your mind decides it means. And within that gap, lives everything. Tell me in the comments, which trigger has been running your machinery the longest? Disrespect, betrayal, being overlooked. Name the one that fires before you even have a chance to think. Write it below. Naming the pattern is the first fracture in its power. Subscribe if you want to keep going. The 7 laws start now. Nobody wastes energy destabilizing a person they do not perceive as a threat. Provocation is expensive. It costs social capital, it risks retaliation, it exposes intent. No one pays that price for someone they consider irrelevant. When someone tries to anger you, they are not demonstrating their power. They are confessing their lack of it. You recognize this pattern. The coworker who makes the cutting remark right after your presentation goes well. The family member who finds the one vulnerable spot at every holiday dinner. The stranger online who attacks with surgical precision the moment you share something real. None of them are striking from a position of strength. They are reaching upward, trying to pull you down to the only arena where they can compete. Raw, unfiltered chaos. Your anger is the elevator that brings you to their floor. The second law is more dangerous because it is invisible. You do not only react for the person who provoked you, you react for the audience you imagine is watching. Someone disrespects you in a group, and suddenly the calculation changes. It is no longer about the insult itself. It is about what everyone else will think if you do not respond. Your mind conjures a courtroom, judges in every chair, a verdict being written with every second of your silence. But this courtroom does not exist. The people around you are not scoring your response on a 10-point scale of masculinity or strength. Most of them are barely paying attention. Most of them are trapped inside their own anxieties, their own narratives, their own imaginary courtrooms. Machiavelli would tell you that the prince who performs for the crowd has already surrendered his throne to the crowd. Your silence in a charged moment does not read as weakness to intelligent observers. It reads as control. And control is the one quality that cannot be faked. The man who needs to prove he is strong has already proven he is not. The third law is the one that changes everything once you truly absorb it. Every visible emotional trigger you possess is a string, and anyone who discovers it becomes your puppeteer. You have watched this happen. Perhaps you have lived it. There is a person in your life, a boss, a partner, a sibling, an old friend, who knows exactly which words will ignite you. They have pressed that button before. They have watched you erupt. And they filed it away with the precision of a cataloger. Now they can activate you at will. A specific tone of voice, a particular phrase, a look held 1 second too long. They do not even need to be obvious about it. The most skilled manipulators trigger you in ways that appear completely innocent to everyone else in the room. You explode. They blink with surprise, and suddenly you are the problem. Dark psychology calls this reactive abuse, provoking someone until they react, then pointing to the reaction as evidence that they are the unstable one. You cannot fight this by reacting harder. You can only fight it by becoming unreactive, by cutting the strings entirely, by responding to the trigger with such absolute stillness that the puppeteer reaches for the string and finds nothing there. That is not weakness. That is the most sophisticated form of psychological warfare available to a human being. And it requires no aggression at all. The fourth law is mechanical. It is the simplest of the 7, and it is the one that will save you more than any other. Never respond at the speed of emotion. Always respond at the speed of strategy. There is a window, neuroscience measures it at roughly 6 seconds, between the moment your amygdala fires and the moment your prefrontal cortex can fully engage. 6 seconds. That is the gap between the animal response and the human one, between the reaction that serves your opponent and the response that serves you. The Stoics built an entire philosophy inside that gap. Seneca wrote that the greatest remedy for anger is delay, not suppression, not denial, delay, because the emotion that feels like a roaring fire at second 1 often feels like a warm ember at second 10. And by second 30, you can see the entire board clearly. Every piece, every motive, every possible move and countermove. The man who speaks first in anger speaks last in strategy. You practice this the way you practice anything, not in the moments of crisis. You will fail there until the pattern is deep enough. You practice in the small moments. The rude cashier, the the careless driver, the minor slight that barely registers on the scale of your life but still produces that familiar chemical surge. You pause, you breathe, you let the 6 seconds pass, and you discover something remarkable. The urge to react dissolves on its own when you stop feeding it with attention. The fifth law requires the most psychological maturity. It is also the most powerful. What angers you in others almost always mirrors something unresolved in yourself. Jung called this the shadow, the collection of traits, impulses, and qualities you have rejected and buried in your unconscious. When someone behaves in a way that triggers disproportionate anger in you, they are not just offending your values. They are activating your shadow. They are reflecting back to you something you refuse to acknowledge in yourself. The person whose arrogance enrages you may be reflecting your own suppressed desire for recognition. The person whose dishonesty infuriates you may be reflecting the lies you tell yourself about your own life. The person whose laziness disgusts you may be reflecting the rest you have never allowed yourself to take. This is uncomfortable. It is supposed to be. If this reframe has shifted something in you, if you recognize the mirror even slightly, a like puts this in front of someone else who is ready to see it too. The Machiavellian does not flinch from uncomfortable truths. He uses them. Because the moment you understand why a specific person triggers you, that person loses all power over your emotional state. The trigger was never about them. It was about the unfinished work inside you. And once you claim that work, once you face the shadow directly, the mirror stops burning. You stop fighting the reflection, and you start doing the real work. The sixth law governs your most finite resource. Every moment spent angry is a moment stolen from building something that matters. This is not a metaphor, it is an accounting principle. Machiavelli observed that the rulers who lasted, not the ones who burned brightest, but the ones who endured, were ruthless economists of attention. They did not invest their mental energy in every slight, every rumor, every petty rivalry that circled the court. They selected their battles with the precision of a surgeon selecting incisions. Your attention is not renewable. The hours you spend replaying an argument at 3 a.m. are hours you will never recover. The mental bandwidth consumed by resentment toward someone who wronged you last year is bandwidth that cannot be allocated toward the project, the relationship, the vision that actually deserves it. Anger is not free. It costs exactly what you could have built with that same energy. The Stoic emperor understood this. Aurelius governed the largest empire in the Western world. He dealt with plague, betrayal, war, and the slow decay of everything he had built. He could have spent every waking moment in righteous fury. Instead, he spent it asking a single question. Is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, release. There is no third option. And the energy saved by refusing the third option is the energy that builds empires. The seventh law is not a technique. It is an identity. You do not become unshakable by learning to manage your anger. You become unshakable by becoming the kind of person who no longer produces it in the first place. This is the deepest level. This is where psychology meets philosophy meets the transformation of character itself. The first 6 laws are strategies. They give you tools to interrupt, redirect, and control the reactive machinery you inherited. But the 7th law says something more radical. You can rewrite the machinery entirely. Not through suppression, through understanding. When you truly comprehend that every provocation is a confession of someone else's weakness, when you have internalized that your triggers are mirrors of your own unfinished work, when you have practiced the delay so many times that the gap between stimulus and response has widened into a cathedral of calm, something shifts. You stop needing the strategies because the anger stops arriving, not because you have numbed yourself, not because you have built walls so high nothing gets through, but because you have changed the story your mind tells in that millisecond before the reaction fires. The old story said, "This is a threat. Defend yourself." The new story says, "This is information. Use it." That single shift from threat to information is the difference between the man who is governed and the man who governs. It is the difference Machiavelli spent his life trying to articulate. It is the difference the Stoics built an entire civilization of thought around, and it is available to you. Not in theory, in practice. starting now. The first practice is what the Stoics called the morning rehearsal. Before your feet touch the floor each morning, you rehearse difficulty, not to attract it, to inoculate yourself against it. You tell yourself, clearly, deliberately, without drama, that today someone will be careless with your feelings, someone will be dishonest, someone will attempt to provoke you, and you decide before any of it happens that none of it will commandeer your behavior. Marcus Aurelius did this every single morning for 20 years while governing an empire. You can do it in 90 seconds while the coffee brews. The second practice is the interrogation pause. When the fire comes, and it will come because you are human, you do not fight it. You do not suppress it. You ask it one question. Whose interest does my reaction serve? If the answer is not yours, the reaction dies in your chest instead of leaving your mouth. This is not about being passive. This is about being precise. The warrior who swings at every shadow exhausts himself before the real battle begins. The strategist conserves every strike for the moment it will actually matter. The third practice is the shadow audit. Once a week, ideally in writing, though silence works too, you examine the moments that triggered you most intensely. You ask the uncomfortable question, what does this anger reveal about me, not about them? You look for the mirror, you look for the unfinished work, and you do that work quietly, privately, with the ruthless honesty that Machiavelli demanded of every leader who wanted to survive. This is not therapy dressed in dark clothing. This is strategic self-mastery. The person who understands their own triggers cannot be weaponized by anyone. The person who has faced their shadow cannot be ambushed by its reflection in someone else. You do this work not because it is pleasant. You do it because the alternative, a life spent reacting to every provocation, burning energy on every slight, handing your composure to anyone bold enough to reach for it, is a life that belongs to everyone except you. Everything you have heard today points to a single truth. The world will never stop trying to provoke you. People will never stop being careless, cruel, dishonest, and disappointing. The stimuli will keep coming until the day you die. What changes is you, not through armor, through architecture. You are not building walls. You are building a structure so deeply rooted, so precisely engineered, so fundamentally sound that the storms do not threaten it, because it was designed for storms. Machiavelli did not write for men who lived in peaceful times. He wrote for men who lived in chaos and needed to remain sovereign within it. The Stoics did not philosophize from comfort. They philosophized from plague, from exile, from the front lines of wars they did not choose. The 7 laws are not ideals. They are instruments, and they only work if you use them. Remember where we started. You believed your anger protected you. You believed the fire was a weapon. Now you know. The fire was never yours to begin with. It was inherited, installed, reinforced by a world that profits from your reactivity. Every system around you, social, commercial, interpersonal, runs more smoothly when you are emotional, predictable, and easy to move. The 7 laws are your exit, not from feeling, from being governed by feeling, not from passion. From the slavery of passion misdirected, you are not becoming cold, you are becoming sovereign. There is a difference between a man who does not feel and a man who cannot be displaced by what he feels. The first is damaged. The second is dangerous, in the most precise and necessary sense of the word. You have spent your life being told that emotional control means emotional absence, that composure means suppression, that the person who does not react is the person who does not care. That is a lie designed to keep you reactive. The truth is the opposite. The man who pauses before he speaks cares more than the man who explodes. The man who chooses his response has invested more thought, more discipline, more genuine respect for the moment than the man who simply lets his nervous system do the talking. Machiavelli observed that the princes who endured were never the most passionate. They were the most precise. They measured every word. They weighed every gesture. They understood that in a world full of men who could not control themselves, the one who could was already ahead before the first move was made. This is not manipulation. This is mastery. And the distinction matters because it determines whether you use these laws to dominate others or to liberate yourself. The 7 laws point inward. They always have. Every single principle, From recognizing provocation as confession to intercepting the story before the reaction fires is about your relationship with yourself. Other people are the weather. You are the architecture, and architecture does not argue with the wind. Sovereignty is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It does not need to. It looks like the man who receives an insult at dinner and continues eating without changing the rhythm of his fork. Not because he did not hear it, because he has already decided it does not deserve the energy of a response. It looks like the woman who watches a colleague take credit for her work and says nothing in the meeting, then presents the evidence privately, strategically, at the exact moment it will have the most impact. Not because she is passive, because she is precise. It looks like the person who gets a message designed to provoke them at 11 at night and puts the phone down. Not because they are above emotion, because they refuse to let someone else choose the time, the place, and the terms of their engagement. These are not hypothetical people. These are the people who have internalized the same principles you are absorbing right now, and the world treats them differently. Not because they demanded respect, because they stopped negotiating for it. When you no longer react on command, people stop trying to command you. When your composure cannot be purchased by provocation, provocateurs go bankrupt in your presence. When your emotional state is no longer public property, the people who fed on your reactions quietly starve. That is the Machiavellian result. Not cruelty, sovereignty, not domination, independence. You become the person in the room that others cannot read, cannot predict, cannot destabilize. And that uncertainty, your uncertainty, becomes the most powerful force in every interaction you enter. Let us name them clearly one final time, not as theory, as instruments you carry from this moment forward. The first law: anger is not power, it is the performance of power, and every intelligent observer knows the difference. The man who loses his temper has already broadcast his weakness to every strategist in the room. The second law: provocation is confession. No one wastes energy destabilizing a person they do not fear. Every attempt to anger you is an admission of your power and their lack of it. The third law: coldness is not emptiness. It is the discipline of feeling everything and choosing what to show. The flame exists. You simply decide when, where, and whether it is seen. The fourth law: your reactions were installed, not chosen. Every trigger you carry was inherited from someone who never questioned their own. You are not dismantling your personality. You are reclaiming authorship of it. The fifth law: the space between stimulus and response is the entire battlefield. Control that space, and you control every outcome that flows from it. The sixth law: what the world sees is what the world uses. Every visible emotion is an unlocked door. The sovereign decides which doors remain open and which remain sealed. The seventh law: stillness is not silence. It is the loudest statement a composed mind can make. When you refuse to react, you do not give the provocateur nothing. You give them a mirror, and what they see in it is entirely their problem. These are not rules to memorize, they are reflexes to build. And building them requires the same thing every form of mastery requires: repetition in the moments where it is hardest to remember. You will be tested tomorrow, not by something dramatic, not by an enemy or a rival or a crisis worthy of a chapter in a book. You will be tested by something small: a comment from a coworker, a tone of voice from someone you love, a stranger on the internet who has never met you and never will, saying something designed to reach through the screen and grip your nervous system. And in that moment, that ordinary, unremarkable, completely forgettable moment, everything you have heard today will either live or die. Because mastery is not proven in the extraordinary, it is proven in the mundane. The man who remains composed during a crisis but explodes over a parking space has mastered nothing. The woman who navigates a boardroom with precision but unravels over a text message has built a facade, not a foundation. The 7 laws do not care about scale, they care about consistency. Every interaction is the test. Every reaction is the result. Every moment of stillness in the face of provocation is a brick in the structure you are building, and the structure compounds. Every time you pause instead of react, the pause becomes easier. Every time you choose your response instead of defaulting to the old program, the new program strengthens. Every time you refuse to hand your composure to someone who did not earn it, you earn something far more valuable than their approval. You earn your own sovereignty, permanently. If this reframe has shifted something in you, alike puts it in front of someone else who is still handing their power away tonight. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations once and consider himself transformed. He wrote them daily because the work is daily. The triggers do not retire, the provocations do not take holidays. The world does not pause to let you practice in peace. You practice in the fire, or you do not practice at all. There is one final piece that most people never consider, and it may be the most important of all. You are not the last person in your line. Whether you raise children, mentor younger people, lead a team, or simply exist in a world where others observe you, your patterns are being downloaded by someone right now. The same way you inherited your triggers, someone is inheriting yours. The same way you absorbed the reactivity of the adults around you without a single moment of conscious consent, someone is absorbing yours. Every time you explode in front of someone who looks up to you, you are writing their program. Every time you let a provocation hijack your behavior in a room full of people, you are teaching them that this is how it works. This is how adults respond. This is what strength looks like, and it is not. The decision to master your reactions is not selfish. It is one of the most generous things you will ever do. Because the person who watches you remain still when the world tries to move you does not just admire you. They learn from you. They absorb your pattern. They carry your composure forward into rooms you will never enter and situations you will never see. You are not just breaking a cycle. You are rewriting the code for everyone who comes after you. That is the inheritance Machiavelli never discussed, because his world was concerned with thrones and territories. But your world is concerned with something more lasting. The internal kingdom that no external force can conquer unless you open the gates yourself. Do not open the gates. There is an eighth law that was never listed. It lives beneath all the others. You do not owe anyone your reaction, not your anger, not your tears, not your justification, not your defense, not a single calorie of emotional energy that you did not consciously choose to spend. Your reaction is yours. It belongs to you the way your heartbeat belongs to you. And every time you gave it away, every time you let someone's words dictate your state, someone's behavior determine your mood, someone's opinion reshape your evening, you were giving away something that was never theirs to take. Today that ends. Not because you heard a video that inspired you for 20 minutes before the feeling faded, but because you understood something structural, something mechanical, something that cannot be unfelt once it has been felt. You understood that your emotional sovereignty was never lost. It was never taken. It was handed away freely, repeatedly by a version of you that did not know any better. That version served its purpose. It got you here. But it does not get to drive anymore. Machiavelli wrote about princes, about men who wore crowns made of gold and iron and the blood of their enemies. But the crown that matters, the one no one can steal, no court can strip, no rival can claim, is the crown of a mind that governs itself. You will never wear it publicly. No one will see it, no one will bow, no one will know when they sit across from you at dinner or stand beside you in an argument or try to provoke you into losing yourself, that they are facing someone who has done the work they never will. And that is precisely the point. The sovereign does not need recognition. The sovereign does not need applause. The sovereign does not need the world to confirm what he already knows about himself. He knows because he built it, brick by brick, pause by pause, choice by choice. In every small, unremarkable moment where the old version would have reacted and the new version simply watched, assessed, and chose differently. You challenged yourself at the beginning of this video. You believed your anger protected you. You believed that fire was strength. Now you carry a different understanding. The fire still burns, but it burns for you now, on your terms, in your timing, at your direction. And no one, no provocation, no insult, no betrayal, no chaos the world can produce, will ever take that from you again. If you want to continue building what we started here, subscribe. This work does not end with one video. The crown is not given. It is built, and you have already started. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one.